My name is Dean Charter, one of your selectmen. I'm here to speak about Article 5, which is Town Capital, Infrastructure, Studies, and Improvements. Article 5 is a request for $760,000 for a variety of capital projects and studies. There are 8 elements for this request. Item A is a request to utilize $185,000 from the Cemetery Land Fund to provide capital improvements to Woodland Cemetery located on Concord Road. The Cemetery Land Fund is a depository of funds generated by the sale of burial spaces and related costs. Approximately $84,000 will be expended to pave the roadways around the newly developed Section 15, which is located between the soccer field and the Kennedy office building. Approximately $93,000 will be expended to purchase and install a 128-niche columbarium. A columbarium is an above-ground structure that is used for the permanent interment of ashes from cremations. There is an increasing demand for such space, with over 50% of requests for burial spaces in the Acton cemeteries now cremains, and around 70% of funerals in New England now involve cremation. The columbarium can be revenue positive, and fees generated will be put back into the Cemetery Land Fund, and eventually a similar facility will be installed at Mount Hope Cemetery on Central Street. Most importantly, the spaces provided in the proposed columbarium would be equivalent to 1/4 of an acre of land that would otherwise need to be cleared of trees, graded, and mowed and maintained in perpetuity. From a social, economic, and environmental point of view, we feel that the columbarium deserves town meeting support. Item B requests $185,000 to help implement the 2018 sustainability policy. This policy was adopted unanimously by the Board of Selectmen and is a key guidance document for ongoing decisions and budgeting. The funds will be expended to hire a consultant to assist with our long-term sustainability goals, funding for new electric or hybrid vehicles, and charging stations to replace some of our gasoline-powered fleet, additional charging stations in public areas, and a modest amount for additional street tree plantings to mitigate heat islands and sequester carbon. The rate of street tree loss is expected to increase in the next few years with the presence of emerald ash borer, an exotic invasive insect pest. Ash is one of the major components of our street tree stock. Item C requests $100,000 towards funding complete streets and intersection projects. Some of the intersections being studied include the intersection of Haywood Road and Main Street, the intersection of Prospect Street and Main Street, the intersection of Great Road and Strawberry Hill Road, and the intersection of Strawberry Hill Road and Pope Road. In these and other cases, the roadways are evaluated to see what improvements are needed to provide services for non-motorized traffic as well as vehicles. Some of these funds will be expended for more study and some for design and implementation of improvements as determined by earlier studies. Item D requests $100,000 to construct a fully ADA accessible bathroom adjacent to the Francis Faulkner Hearing Room, Room 204, at Town Hall. When Town Hall was expanded and renovated in the early 1980s, it complied with existing accessibility requirements. But those rules have now changed and provide superior protection for all of our residents and visitors. The use of the Faulkner Room is increasing, and now that the nursing service has moved to the Human Services Center, there is space available to provide this accommodation to the staff and public. Item E requests $50,000 to continue the traffic calming program within the Department of Public Works. Traffic calming refers to a variety of techniques to generally slow down and regulate the flow of traffic to enhance safety for pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicles. These techniques include things like signage, crosswalks, pavement markings, and the like. Recent improvements on Haywood Road, such as signalized crosswalks, enhanced signage, and road shoulder improvements are good recent examples. The idea is to make the roads naturally safer without having to enhance police patrols. Item F requests $60,000 for a facility capital plan study. Several studies have been performed in the past regarding issues with our buildings, such as long-term maintenance needs, long-term space needs, and ADA accessibility issues. The purpose of the requested study is to update the information already at hand, investigate past assumptions, provide supplemental information as needed, and develop a priority list that includes both estimated prices and estimated timeframes. As an example, our public works facility is close to 50 years old, and although it has had some upgrades, it was sized for a much smaller town providing more limited services. Some fundamental issues such as air quality need to be addressed. Similarly, all three of our existing fire stations are between 50 and almost 70 years old, and a comprehensive look is needed at them. This study will produce a hit list of what needs to be tackled and when. Item G requests $40,000 to upgrade the equipment in the dispatch center at the public safety facility. Although it might seem like we just built the PSF, it is now approaching 20 years old, and there have been many changes and improvements to computers and dispatch equipment. How many of us are still using a computer that was purchased around 2005? This equipment is critical public safety infrastructure. The town manager applied for and received a community compact grant from the state in the amount of $150,000 for this equipment, and the requested $40,000 will complete the project. Item H requests $40,000 for a water resources study as requested by the Water Resources Advisory Group. This study will add to information already on hand from the town and the water district, and will help project our future water supply needs and the impact development and climate change will have on that supply. Article 10, Dispose of 3 School Street. Article 10 is a request for authorization to allow the Board of Selectmen to dispose of the building and land located at number 3 School Street, the corner of School Street and Main Street in South Acton, as shown on the map. This building, constructed in 1927, served as a South Acton fire station until the mid-1960s, then as the tree department until the mid-1970s, and since then as the Civil Defense Emergency Management Headquarters. As operations have evolved, there is no longer a purpose for an emergency management headquarters, as most of those functions have been moved to the public safety facility. The building is quite small and lacks parking, so it has been used strictly for storage in recent years. The Board of Selectmen voted to declare the building surplus in August 2019, as we cannot envision a public purpose for the building. The Board of Selectmen feel this building, once rehabilitated and in private hands, could be a critical piece in the rejuvenation of South Acton Center, sometimes referred to as Quimby Square. The board authorized the town manager to issue a request for proposals from potential purchasers, but only one proposal was received, which was deemed to be incomplete and an insufficient offer. In the past few months, there has been some movement towards redevelopment in 2 nearby vacant or underutilized parcels on School Street, and we feel that with time the village will bounce back. With the passage of Article 10, the board will be able to act when the time is right to again place the property on the market. Although a financial return to the town could be one factor, the board is also interested in how this property might help rejuvenate the neighborhood and how it can generate tax revenues. The building will not be demolished, and it is within the South Acton Historic District, so external changes would need to be approved by the HDC. Finally, any uses would have to comply with the South Acton Village District zoning. Article 13, amend general bylaws. Article 13 is a request to delete Section E41 and modify Section E45 of the general bylaws for the town of Acton, and to replace the wording in Section E42 with new wording, as shown on the slide. These sections deal with the regulation of the consumption of alcoholic beverages on public property. Under the present wording, the Board of Selectmen can grant a one-day liquor license for events at Narra Park and at the Senior Center, but in no other public locations. Over the years, there have been no incidents involved at events at the Senior Center and Narra Park, and we feel that the Board of Selectmen should have the ability to grant permits for other areas, subject to conditions set by the board. The kinds of conditions the board might impose might involve crowd size limits, police presence, training for pourers, limits on consumption, or other conditions as the board sees fit. The sort of events we envision that we might approve one-day liquor licenses for include cabaret-type events at the Recreation Center, wine, beer, and cider tastings at farmers markets and similar events, beer garden-type events held for charitable purposes at recreation areas, and toasts at wedding ceremonies held at the Arboretum. There may have been some situations in the past where one-day licenses were inadvertently granted for these kinds of events at these areas, but we feel the need to make practices comply with the bylaws.